going to try and make this fast. Also, if you are going to use your laptop for display, just want to let you know we're going to be really strict on time. Today is incredibly packed. So at the 5-minute mark before the end of your talk, I'm going to do this. And if the next person can come up and if they're really going to use their laptop, let's start switching then while the person's answering questions. Because if we don't really keep this moving along, we'll be here until 9 p.m. I don't think we want to be here until 9 p.m. So I'm going to do administrivia, recap, resync. I was talking to Terry Jones just yesterday about FastOS 1 and the fact that actually it had a lot of impact, and I don't know how many people are aware of it. So administrivia, mailing list is there. As far as I can tell, it's working. I did have a few problems with it at first, probably because I didn't know how to run it. Thanks, Derek. We've got a pretty decent website, which it gets more filled out each week. If there's no link to your project, come and see me, and let's get a link to your project up. That's part of the goal. If you have papers you want to attach to that, the more stuff we put on the website, the better. It makes it easier for people at DOE to sort of know what it is we're doing. There's a FastOS BOF at SCO9, and we might want to talk about the next workshop-style meeting, when or where. I thought maybe SCO9 was a little soon after this one, but I'm willing to be convinced. So there are some people here who weren't here for the original FastOS, which, believe it or not, we started talking about in about 2002, if I remember correctly. I actually dug through some of my old presentations from the time, and I found one slide I was going to put up. And the idea is, if we didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. And we were going to start with known stuff, Linux, and unknown stuff like K42, and try and open up DOE to some new ideas. This quote I really liked, which I also dug up. So, the U.S. government is always surprised by operating system developments, every time, it seems. So this is a great quote. Linux may be fun, but it will never be used in DOE production high-performance computing. That was 01, which was about the year before the first top 10 DOE Linux machine hit the list. So, it's just a perfect timing, really. So anyway, this was one of the funny slides I found, which was, Malice thought as an inspiration for a DOE-sponsored OS research program. And the date was what really hit me. It was 03. The funding started in 05. And we also had this push for open source. I'm just kind of mentioning it again because it's always a little tricky to keep everyone on the dime on open source, especially vendors have different interests than we do, of course, and so that can be a little tough. But actually, so we got together, and in 02 we got this letter from NNSA and Office of Science that essentially said, we want everything to be open source, period, especially if you're at the lab. And I noticed that Dan Grice in his talk on Roadrunner mentioned that future exascale, open source was a bullet. And that would have been almost unimaginable 10 years ago for vendors to put that up and feature it so prominently. So that was kind of a nice effect. So I went back and kind of looked over what had happened in the last 4 years since FastOS was started. And I talk to people at the various vendors, and I do get some of this feedback. They say, oh yeah, we use this thing, and I go back and find that thing, and it turns out that thing was funded by FastOS. And the stuff is so much a part of the landscape now that not even we or even the vendors all know what we did. And there's things involving noise measurement and OS improvements and technologies and technology directions. And I almost decided to try and list them all here, except I realized that I would short some people because I might not know what they've done. So, the fact that a large fraction of the OS code is open source as well grew out at least in part of the efforts of people involved in FastOS. So they didn't just happen, they were an original intent. That was an original intent when we started this thing. We have code that's in use at vendors and national labs. That's not all common. It's not a perfect overlap, which is a good thing. And the Sequoia procurement, the 20 petaflop machine that Lawrence Livermore is building, it references and uses code from FastOS efforts. So, we're taken for granted. And that's good and bad. It's good to be taken for granted. It means you made it. But it's bad because people don't realize what FastOS did. So here is a thought. If you were in FastOS and you have some things that really played a key role in some way in DOE HPC, think about maybe get me a slide. And the format I'm thinking of is, a title, this great thing, whatever it is. 4 or 5 bullets that a congressional, oh, this is being filmed, that anyone could understand. And, that's sort of not a non-specialist, so it's layman's terms. Why was this a good thing? Where is it used? What impact did it have? And this is stuff we can get to Office of Science and maybe to Dan Hitchcock and they can use that as backup possibly in talks they give. So, you know, watching the talks this week, again, we're kind of about fighting, just waiting for things to get better. You know, people mention that, oh, if we just wait around, things will get good enough and we don't have to do anything special for exascale. But given that FastOS influenced what we're doing in the 2006 to 2012 timeframe, I think that argues that FastOS 2 can have influence starting in about a year and going on to 2016, just based on past experience. So from current time to beginnings of exascale, the things we do in this could be pretty important. Everyone's seen that graph. I mean, so in a sense, FastOS is in here, but it influenced what's going to happen here. So we're sort of in we did things that helped the 2 order of magnitude change in processor count world. So I don't know, everybody knows this. People at 2018, the Exascale workshop, they were talking about 2 to the 27 CPUs, which is a big number for me. And we have to figure out what we're going to do about all these CPUs. And I still can't believe that we're going to just scale everything we're doing up, just add a couple of more digits to the exponent of the ranks in MPI or something, but yeah, you never know. But everyone is talking about, again this week, what's the programming model? Will it be MPI in 2050 the way somebody once predicted, or will it maybe change this time? What languages, what file systems, what OS? And all those things are kind of tied together. RAS is finally really beginning to be a big deal. Everything's broken all the time. And you can't even find out what's going on anyway. So I'm doing this other work where we're booting a couple 100,000 virtual machines. And the question came up, how do you tell if they've booted? And the answer is I've got no clue how to tell if things are booted or even working. So when you start talking about 100 million things, figuring out whether anything is working gets a little tricky. So in a sense, the change from where we are to this exascale machine will be a lot harder, I think, than teraflop to petaflop. We kind of made all the things we're doing sort of work for petaflop, but it's hard to believe it'll work for exascale. So in a very real sense, this will be a change in kind, not a change in just sort of making things a little bigger. So today's talks, they're not 100% FastOS sponsored. We've got Kitten kicking us off. It's a neat lightweight kernel effort from Sandia, and I thought it'd be a good kind of thing to hear about. We've got 2 vendor talks. The structure is kind of from the inside out, so we kind of start at the low-level kernel stuff, and in the end of the day, we're going to be talking about RAS, even though it's just a handy way to classify it, because they all interact and affect each other. So, I'm actually running ahead of time.